In the 18th century, during the neoclassical movement, Western Europeans were looking to their antiquity for intellectual and cultural inspiration. The movement revivified ancient pre-Christian forms and motifs and hoped that reintegrating them could restore something lost in the European psyche. This interest in classical culture would engender a Renaissance spirit which would permeate the arts, theatre, philosophy and politics. As this cultural movement was celebrated across Europe, one Welshman in particular wanted his countrymen to benefit from this trend. Iolo Morganwg, otherwise known as Edward Williams, travelled throughout Wales, knocking on doors of aristocrats in the pursuit of ancient Welsh manuscripts. He collected as many as he could and made copies of those he couldn't take with him, and would keep all of them in his personal collection. Iolo would join Dr. Owen Jones and Dr. William Owen Pugh in the writing of the Myvyrian Archaeology of Wales, which published these ancient documents for public viewing, so that the ancient laws, customs and literary traditions of the Welsh could be brought to the surface once again. Iolo also helped excavate ancient Welsh inscribed stones, and rediscovered the ancient British writing system recorded by 15th century poet Ieuan Llawddyn, which Iolo presented as the Coelbren alphabet. Iolo also founded the Gorsedd of the Bards of Britain, which incepted the Druidic revival which has lasted to this day. Iolo was a man steeped in the information of his ancestral heritage, and it is this degree of involvement with the historical manuscripts which gave him the information needed to extract the blueprint for the rituals of the Druids from the Khumric ancestral memory. It is fair to say that Iolo was on a divinely inspired mission to take back the fragments of the memory of the ancient Khumric race, a now downtrodden people, but a tribe with an illustrious heritage nonetheless. Today, Iolo Morganwg stands discredited, shamed and slandered in the eyes of the British establishment and academia. To understand this fully, we have to see that during the 19th century, Wales endured serious cultural attacks from the Anglican Oxbridge elite in order to culturally harmonise Wales into a homogeneous Anglo-Saxon-centric branding in terms of education and culture, which are illustrated in the treachery of the Blue Books. In essence, anything related to the ancestral culture of the ancient Britons had to go, and that would eventually include Iolo Morganwg. The attacks on Iolo would begin inside Wales, however, which is symptomatic of what Ross Broadstock once referred to as a form of Stockholm syndrome, where a captive person falls in love with their captor, or in this case, Oxford-educated Welshmen damning their own countrymen in order to sanitise the Welsh of their perceived heresy, or to gain favour in elite circles, or both. I believe the Oxford man Griffith J. Williams was no exception to this unfortunate rule. Williams accused Iolo of the forgery or invention of the Coelbren alphabet, the rituals of the Gorsedd, as well as some of the manuscripts. Williams' criticism incepted a smear campaign against Iolo's work and character, which were all based in topics definitely open for discussion, and I'll make more videos about that, but in this video I'm concentrating on the Coelbren alphabet. I'm going to demonstrate how this ancient British writing system legitimately existed and was no forgery. Julius Caesar journaled that the Druids of Britain were able to make sense of the Greek and Hebrew scripts due to the resemblance of the British alphabet characters. This record certainly supports my argument, but allow me to explain why that was possible. The British writing system evolved simultaneously and separately to its brother in origin, the Latin alphabet. Both are descendants of the Proto-Sinaitic script, which was in itself a child script of the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Proto-Sinaitic was the writing system of the Hebrews of the Exodus. It would develop into Proto-Hebraic, and this alphabet travelled with the Hebrews that found new lands to inhabit. Some went with Moses to Canaan, and these people would eventually help to develop the Phoenician alphabet. Other seafaring Hebrews went to western Anatolia, where they founded the city of Troy. These Trojans fled to Etruria in northern Italy after the Trojan War, and we see the development of the Etruscan alphabet. So the Etruscan alphabet had developed on one side of the Mediterranean basin, and the Phoenician alphabet on the other, and would later inform each other to create the modern Latin script. But before that happened, some Etrurians followed Brutus to Britain and brought their alphabet with them, and eventually a British script would be established. The Phoenician Greek script eventually made it over to Rome, where it would intermingle with the existing Etruscan script, which would help the development of modern Latin, which would become the alphabet spread throughout the Roman Empire. The Romans are widely regarded as being the enlightening force which gave the primitive Britons their letters and writing. However, if we look at this British coin dated 10 to 20 BC found in Kent, the then Brythonic kingdom of Ashanti, we can see that a style of italic script was well in use, which is in itself enough proof that there was an independent British writing system that existed decades before the Roman occupation of Britain. And if we look closely at the L-shaped character, we can see that it is identical to the L character presented by Iolo Morganwg. We can also see that this particular character is not in use by the Romans at this time. If we look at the Gretna stone in the Margam Stone Museum, and in particular the R-like characters, we see other glyphs represented by Iolo in the Coelbren alphabet, which clearly harken back to the Proto-Hebraic. What is interesting about this stone is that it's a later one, and the evidence of the Proto-Hebraic characters being used in conjunction with modern Latin characters on 10th century stones in Wales tells us that the Welsh had a clear memory of Phoenician or Proto-Hebraic letters, which are still in use in Wales as late as the 10th century, and also do not appear in the Roman Latin text which was brought to Britain, indicating again that there was an italic alphabet in operation in Britain prior to the Roman occupation and the introduction of the modern Latin script. It's also a similar case with the Bodvok stone from the 6th century, which is also in the Stone Museum in Margam. When looking at these three characters, especially the ones closest to the left, you can also see characters presented by Iolo, which do not appear in Latin script, providing more evidence for the characters specific to Coelbren. And it's a similar thing here when looking at the Coelbren style N on the Fanoni stone in the British Museum, which I've already demonstrated reads perfectly in Welsh, giving further examples of Brythonic literacy. So as you can see here, just by looking at these four artifacts, I've been able to present a good amount of the characters specific to Iolo's Coelbren, which simultaneously hearken to the Mediterranean alphabets, but do not resemble the Roman Latin script. And we can say that all of these artifacts belong to the Brythonic areas. Given this evidence, I think it's unfair to say that Iolo Morganwg forged the letters. We have enough to be confident that the Britons were using these characters, sometimes in conjunction with modern Latin script, but as was understood, the ancient Britons would have mainly recorded messages on sticks of wood, which means it was more likely that we would have seen the rest of the script in use in less Romanised areas. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment if you have any feedback, ideas or questions. I've been Adam Griffith, thanks for watching.